Hello everyone, this is John Stark from the Carrara forums, and this is my second tutorial of all time, but on Carrara dynamic hair, and we're going to be creating a more complex hairstyle. There was nothing wrong with the first hairstyle, by the way. It's simple, but that's only simple in the sense that it's easy to put together and quick to render. And if you missed the first set of tutorials, you can check my YouTube links to find it, and or the Carrara forums over at Daz, or the Renderosity forums, where I also posted links. And to my great surprise, and it made me very proud to see that they have gone up on the Carrara Cafe website. I don't know exactly how that works or who runs that, but thank you very much. I'm very honored to be included, and I was really shocked to see how quickly they went up there. And also, at some point, I really need to get them on the Carrara Tours forum for animators, because those guys are just pushing the boundaries of what's possible in Carrara animation, and they're just fantastic work being done there. I had a little bit of trouble initially where my computer's configuration would not let me log on to their site. I'd have to create a new user ID every time I wanted to post there, and they've changed their forums now, so I think maybe I can get in and post again, and I'll have to do that. But I do recommend watching the first set of tutorials, even though I'm a little long-winded, just because I want to make sure that you've got the fundamentals of the tools that we're going to employ here before we launch into the second set. I'm going to give you a quick tease of the type of hairstyle that we're going for here. It looks a little strange in the initial frame here, just because it hasn't settled by gravity or anything. This is just where it was sort of combed to, but hopefully you'll get an idea as it bounces down there. And you can see we've got some curls and waves going on in the hair, some volume to it, some bounce, some shape retention. I've added some wind forces here to the animation so we could sort of see how it played with directional forces and how that looked. And so this is a little bit more of a complex hair. There is no invisible face shield involved in this, and for that reason you can see that it kind of falls forward over the eyes at certain parts. And we're going to get into how to build this just a little later, but before we do, there are some things that I felt like, and maybe I skipped in the first set of tutorials, some comments on tools, some comments on techniques, some things that I felt like maybe I unintentionally gave them short shrift, or maybe I didn't know them. There's a couple of things that I've learned in the week since I put that first tutorial together, and just a couple of things I just want to round it out to talk about. I couldn't find my original scene that I did for the first tutorial. I've misplaced it, but this hair was so simple to build, I just whipped another one together on a Victoria 4 proxy really quickly. And I've sort of draped it there. It's sort of in the down position. As you can see, it's still very basic. I didn't do anything different than last time. But I wanted to show you a couple of things. One was the settings on the brush tool, which I don't think I went into enough detail on. And I wanted to show you something about that. Now, I know that I mentioned that I kicked it up to 100% strength, and mostly that was because I didn't want to fool around with it. I wanted to be able to just grab the hair, yank it, and get it into place. But one of the things I don't think I mentioned is that I like the stiffness to be really nice and high on that tool. And the reason for that, what the stiffness does, I'm going to zoom in here so hopefully it's easily apparent. The stiffness allows me to grab the hair. Ooh, I've knocked that one into the mesh there, but it allows me to grab the hair at the point, but it also affects kind of a large swath of the chains of the hair. It kind of stiffens the chains, not for the purpose of the actual animation or simulation, but it stiffens that hair so that when I'm grabbing that one little point, which is all you can grab, is wherever the point is, you're affecting kind of a larger swath of the hair. And the reason that I like that, as opposed to, say, the opposite of stiffness, which is no stiffness, is you can see if there's no stiffness, you're really kind of only affecting just that little tip area. And that might be okay if you were just trying to do a little thing where maybe you, I don't know, maybe you wanted to have a tiny little curl at the end of the hair or something like that had to be really precise. See, I'm doing that with the points there. That might be okay. But for most purposes, when I'm styling the hair, I like the stiffness nice and high. It's particularly when I'm in the middle, and we are going to do some shaping of the hair and styling of the hair with the brush this time, not just sort of knocking it into position for it to fall, particularly if you're in the middle, you can sort of see there that it's affecting kind of a nice, almost like a Bezier curve. That's an animation term. Probably I'm using it incorrectly there, but you know what I mean. It's got that nice curve where it's affecting more than just the point. Whereas if I take the stiffness out of it, you can see right away that really I'm just affecting that little point there. I mean, it is kinematic, so that if you pull it far enough, it's going to pull the others as well. But you can see that if you just did this, particularly the ends when you're pushing things around, you could really kink it up really badly and turn it into a rat's nest very, very easily. And let's do that because I wanted to also demonstrate the virtues of another tool. Let's say you got everything draped and it's just too much of a rat's nest. You've messed it up too badly beyond comparing, and you want to reset things to start from ground zero. You can do that. There's a tool up here called the Reset Shape tool, and if you click that little tool there, it will take every hair in your scene, no matter whether you've draped it, whether you styled it, whatever you've done to it. You click that tool and it just kicks it right back up into the default spiky look, so you can sort of start from scratch if you wanted to. Now, I don't want to start from scratch, actually. I want to show you a third tool that I think I kind of gave a little bit of short shrift to, didn't mean to, which is the Smooth tool here. And if we click on the Smooth tool, the way this tool works is there's a couple of tools that are like this. The Smooth tool and I think the Straighten tool, very similar in the way that they work. You have to select whatever hair that you're going to select by the point at the root. And if you've got all the hair selected, you only have to select one of them. But if you miss that point and you click anywhere else, then you've selected nothing and it won't have any effect. So I'm just going to select all the hairs again. I'm going to do a better job this time of clicking on the actual point. When I click and hold it down, if I drag the mouse, you're going to see right away that it smooths out those curls and kinks in the hair there. It does not care about the scalp or the mesh. It will do it right through the mesh. But it's still very useful for uncurling your kinks. And if you get it through the mesh, then of course our best friend is the Push tool. We just push it outside of the mesh. It's ready to drape again. Might as well just do a quick drape to get it all back sort of down there. I haven't really done much to this at all as far as like evening out the bottoms or making the links all cut to the same shape or anything, because it really doesn't matter for the purposes of this. We're not going to be actually styling this hair too much. I just wanted to show you a couple of the tools. And the next tool that I want to show you, which is the reason I want to show it to you is because it behaves nothing at all like I thought it would, is the Density Hair Add and Subtract tools. Now, I told you at the outset that the number of hairs that you have set down here in your hair group, this number does not change. So it starts as a default of 5. I've got it to 10. Let me kick it back to 5,000 like it would be for the default. And in our scene here, I don't have the hair cap attached. If we had the hair cap attached, all of this stuff that looks so thin at the top, would be really not that noticeable. And if we wanted to make it less noticeable, we could up the hair count. But here's a nifty little trick for you, because when you increase the number of hairs, the loose hairs that are in your scene in this section here for the hair count, you're also increasing your render times. It does nothing to your simulation times. The only thing that impacts your hair simulation times is the number of guide hairs you have and how complex their shape is. So if you added some waves or curls to those guide hairs, that would slow down your simulation time. By contrast, the guide hairs have nothing at all to do with your render time because they're not visible in the scene anyway. Their only function is to say to the loose hairs, hey guys, follow me. This is, you need to get with me and I'll show you where to go. And by contrast, in the render time, it's the number of hairs that you have in your scene that can kick things up here. So originally when I was doing 150,000 hairs to try to get realistic effect, I was really slowing my renders much more than I ever needed to. I don't think for most purposes that you would ever need much more than 20 to 25,000 hairs. If you're getting above that, I don't think that there's really a good reason to do that, especially if you're using the hair cap. In fact, if you have the hair cap, you could do it 5, 10,000 hairs max, and that's really all you need, especially for animations, because the eye can't really see the difference between the flowing dynamic hair and the hair cap underneath. It just basically sort of blanks out or darkens the roots of the hair so that you don't see the scalp shining through as nicely as you do. Now, I've left the hair cap off here so that you can see how thin that looks, especially with the whiteness of the V4 proxy figure. It's very apparent how threadbare that is at 5,000 count. Now, we could counteract that easily by just jumping in the hair room, kicking it up to, well, shoot, 80,000 or something, 90,000, let's say. And then when I jump back, you can see right away, oh my gosh, it covers it just like nobody's business. It looks great. But this is going to be an extremely long render. And by the way, you can always change that hair count at any time, and it won't affect your simulation at all. So whatever simulations you've ran, if you want to change textures and shaders on the hair, and also the number of hairs that are loose hairs that are attached to the scene, you don't have to worry about running another simulation with it. It won't make any difference. But let's just kick this up to 10,000, which is kind of the max that I wanted to do in this scene. And it does cover it, twice as well as it did with 5,000. But let's just recall, though, that this is evenly spread over any area that we've painted green when we first did the, what's the name of the tool? The Grow Region tool. This is just evenly spread. It spreads all 5,000 hairs exactly evenly, but it doesn't have to be even. So I'm going to show you how to use the hair density removal tools, because it's different than I thought it would be. In my mind's eye, this tool would be that I would just hover anywhere over where it's green, painted green, and I would just sort of hold down my mouse key, and you can see it kind of changes color, so I know it's working, supposedly. And I shake it around a little bit to say, hey, look, I really want this to be really thin right here. But what I found was it doesn't work that way at all, and it won't thin it out. Well, it did because I accidentally got over the guide hairs. Let me show you how it really works, though. It's all keyed to the guide hairs, which I didn't think would even matter. If you scrub it over the guide hairs, see how I've got it at a strength of 25, it'll increase. Well, I really took that way down there, but if you just sort of lightly click it, you'll see that, I don't know how apparent that is, but it's actually making the guide hairs like thinner. It's changing their color, and if I go all the way down, it even will scrub it down to like a black color. If I go all the way down to a black color, that's like a bald spot. Whereas if it's a thin color, that just means it's less dense, and if it's just white dot, then it's kind of like sparse. So if we can look here, and we see that we've really thinned that out. We've got still some sparse comb over hair looking there. That's coming from these ones that are sort of at the top, but it's way thinner than it was. And you see how that works is it's all but done on the guide hairs. Now, you are not changing the number of loose hairs that are in your scene. There's still 10,000. So if I'm subtracting from this area, then naturally it's sort of denser in those areas that I'm not subtracting from. So I got the idea as kind of a neato mosquito sort of way of doing things. I've put the positive means you add the density back. So let me just add that density right on back in there all the way. I'm going to kick up the strength to 100%. Yeah. So it comes right back as quickly as possible. So I got the idea of, well, for a hairstyle like this, where the thin parts are on the top, still kind of thin on the corners there, then we could make it thicker. We could make it thicker on the top by just scrubbing increase the density in that region. And we're kind of drawing away from the others. And you could actually decrease the density on the sides, where it doesn't matter because you got lots of hair falling over anyway, and you still have kind of a higher count of hair without actually getting a higher count of hair. You're just sort of covering the parts that matter most or are most visible. Again, this is kind of like do you need to do it? Absolutely not. Whoops. I didn't mean to scrub off the hair there. But well, the hair cap, you don't really need it, but it's just kind of a neat trick to sort of fool the system. You're having the same number of hairs, you're just making them fall more in the trouble areas, making it denser in the trouble areas. So there are other density tools there. There's a density paint tool where you could paint density regions and apply it that way. I'm not going to get into it too much because I don't use it. I haven't really played with it too much myself, and I can't really comment on how useful it is. And I don't really think I need much of it. Now that I know how to use the hair increase and decrease of density, I think that probably is enough to see me through for those little problem areas if I need to add a few extra thick patches, if you will. Okay, so that's not all I wanted to say. Let me see if that's all I wanted to say about the tools. Yeah, actually, I think these are the bits that I missed in the first tutorial. And here's some things that I didn't know, like the density tool, which I really hadn't played with that much, which is out here in the assembly room under the model of the proxy figure or the model of the hair or both. You can change. This comes. I smacked myself in the forehead when I saw this on the forums. Dartenbeck pointed this out. You can change the physical properties of those materials. You can make it more friction on the sort of the skin, so that and more friction on the hair, so that the hair kind of sticks to the skin a little bit more or less. You can add a little bit of balance in between as it's coming into it. So they don't have a huge impact on your hair simulations, but they do have some in my testing. So bear this in mind, that you can actually change the physical properties of the hair at this, and this is in the effects tabs of the model or the hair model. And you can also change the physical properties of what it's colliding against to get more interesting effect, so bear that in mind too, and I wanted to make a comment on that. Now, when we come back, I'm going to leave it here for the first part of the tutorial, but when we come back, I'm going to talk about, we're going to get into the shader room. And like I said, with the let me get it back to it. This is the style we're going to do. What we're going to build in this, we're going to be doing sort of some, you can see if you look at it, that it's got some volume to it. There's some waves and ringlets. I wanted to have a little bit more curls that were built into the hair. I wanted to explore what kind of settings you would need to get some natural movement where shape retention is in effect. So like a little bit of hairspray or a little bit of body to the hair, but it still should whip out there with some wind forces. So we're going to get into all of that, but let's first talk about the shader room for hair and talk about some of the stuff we found there, and the pluses and minuses of the shader room versus the actual hair room to change the shape of your hair, and how they might work together to the best effect. So I'll leave it there, and we'll be back with part 2 in the next section to cover that.